A very good morning to all of you. I welcome you all to the Phase 2 of GNLU PhD coursework. Today is the first day of the Phase 2, and we are present here to witness the expert session to be delivered by Professor Dr. Dayanand Sansanswal. Professor Dayanand Sansanswal is a former head and dean of Department of Education of Devi Ahalya University, Indore. Besides teaching in Devi Ahalya University, he taught business research methods and quantitative techniques at IIM Indore, Indian Institute of Management, Indore, and business research methods at Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. After his retirement in August 2008, he has conducted more than 190 workshops on research methodology, statistics, and use of SPSS in different colleges, institutes, and universities in India. Professor Sansanswal's original contribution includes value discussion model, jerk technology, educational clinics, educational pathology centers, and multiple discriminant type items, and which earned him the Best Teacher Award by All India Association of Teacher Educators. Besides these, he has published 450 papers in Indian as well as foreign journals of repute. He is actively dedicated to the improvement of quality of research in India. Professor Sansanswal will be guiding us through the intricacies involved in framing research questions, hypotheses, followed by a practical session. Now I would like to thank the esteemed speaker for obliging us with his presence and interest and welcome him to please begin his session. Sir, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. At the outset, let me express my gratitude to the Gujarat National Law University, who has given me the opportunity to learn many things from you. Because as she has said, Madam Chaudhary has said, I do not belong to the law. That's a fact. So I will be learning a lot of things from you. And please do not hesitate to ask me question. You can put the question in the chat box and I will see, and then I will try to answer. Now, I will not be using the PPT because I somehow do not like that PPT is not a very good tool to be used for teaching purposes. It is maybe a good tool to use whenever you have to make a presentation in a seminar or in a conference. So I will not be using. I will be using the Word file, and I'm using Word file as a white blackboard. So therefore, I will like to now share this one. I'm sure all of you can see this file. I hope you are able to see, Chaudhary.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
All right.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
See, that today's topic, in fact, that is given to me. I actually do not know that how this topic was decided. Because if I have to talk about hypothesis, it takes me not less than 12 to 14 hours to complete hypothesis only. Okay. Nevertheless, I will try my level best. And next is actually the research question which has been said. So anyway, before I start on this particular, these two aspects, I will definitely cover, but I just like to bring a just background so that start understanding in the context. So I start with the word research. I'm sure all of you know what exactly is the meaning of a research. In short, whenever you have to do research, if you see this word, it comprises two: re plus search. Re means again, and search, you know. So why do you search again? For example, that when you are searching only if you have lost something or you have misplaced something. until and unless you do not have that situation, that misplacing or losing, then you will not do the act of searching. So that means you have to have some problem. So you have to have a problem. If you do not have a problem, you do not proceed further. Why people go to court, the lower court or the high court or the Supreme Court? Because they have a problem. If they do not have a problem, I'm sure they will not like to go to the court. Why? The traffic police, they put a fine on the person because there must be some problem, violation of the law, the traffic law. So if you do not have a problem, you do not proceed further. You do not try to find out its remedy, or you do not try to find out its solution. So if you have a problem, then you have to have solution. Now, right now, the whole world is facing a very, very severe problem. All of you know, it is COVID-19. Now, before March 2020, there was nothing like the COVID-19. So therefore, the pharmaceutical companies or different scientists never thought of coming out with some solution of the COVID-19. Now, once this problem has come, now all over the world, the scientist starts finding the solution. So therefore, there's a problem. So naturally, you have to come to some solution. Here, I like to tell you, the problem may be one, but solution may be multiple. But when you conduct a research, in one research, when you take one problem, you come across only one and only one solution. But if you take the same problem again, then you may come across either the same solution or you may come across another solution. So once you take up a problem and you continue, so you come to the solution. That's it, what is important. And if you have to come to the solution, you have to do some activity. You do not do one activity, many activities you have to do. You take simple example, when you are brushing your teeth in the morning, you can see how many activities you are doing. You are taking out your brush, then you are washing it, then you are putting your paste on it, then you are taking the brush in your mouth. See, so many activities you are doing. And these activities have to be done in some sequence. And that sequence has to be either you can say systematic, or you can say scientific. So either you can do the activities systematically, or you can do these activities scientifically. Normally, the people from science, they like to use the word scientifically. But people from the social science or humanities, or for that matter law, they will like to use the word systematic. But both these words, they have a lot of commonness. Okay, so you can use anyone you like. Now, whenever anything is systematic and you are doing many activities, then that is called a process. Taking bath is a process. brushing teeth is a process, making tea is a process, preparing halwa is a process. So there are so many processes. So, and in each process, there will be steps, and these steps will be in a particular sequence. You cannot change the sequence. If you change the sequence, then that process will not be over. Maybe you are doing something else then. These are the 5 technical words which every researcher must understand and must differentiate. Now, I will be using these 5 words, and each word will become the characteristics of a research. And if I use these words in a particular sentence, then that sentence will become the definition of a research. Let me give you one general definition first, and then I can convert that definition to fit into law. I'll say research refers to a process wherein activities are carried out scientifically to find solution of the problem. Now, here please, the 5 words have come. The process has come, activities has come, then scientifically has come, then solution has come, and then is the problem. Please understand, here I have written the problem. I have not written the solution, because one particular problem may have more than one solution. So each word has a particular meaning, that it is not that you use any word anywhere and you know better than me, because in law you have to be very, very, very systematic, and you know why you are using a particular word, because a particular word may have many meanings. So one person may interpret in one way, another may interpret in another way. So that's what you have to be careful. Now, this is the general definition of research. And any research, if the definition you're writing, it is important that its characteristics must become part and parcel of the definition. This is how a definition has to be coined. Now, if I say research in law, so I can change it into like this. Research in law refers to a process wherein activities are carried out scientifically to find solution of the problem related to some aspect of law. Now, you know, there are many branches of law, and your problem must belong to a particular aspect of law, a particular branch of law, or a particular part of whatever you want to say. This is the definition, and the characteristics the characteristics are as one characteristic is that research refers to a process. Research involves activities. Research has a problem, or research deals with a problem. Research leads to solution. And the last one is that process, activities, problem, solution, and okay. Research is scientific or systematic, scientific in nature. So if you know these 5 words, you write one sentence, then this becomes really the characteristics of the problem. The characteristics of the research. Now, I, in fact, like to tell you the types of researches, and that's what very important for all of you, types of researches. Should I leave this particular one, or do you want me to tell you the types of researches quickly? Please, you can.
Yes, sir. Please tell us, sir.
You can type in your chat box. Do you want that I should tell this or I should not tell? Anush Tiwari ji, should I tell?
Please tell us, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Yes. All right. Okay. I'm telling you now. See, types of researches. So I will be telling you first. And for that, let me just have one. I make a little table so that it's all right. I'll say serial number. Then I'll say here type. And then here I say the base. So this is what I will be doing. Now, the one way is, now whenever you do a research, you get information, or you can say you get data, and you know the information or data will be how many types? How many types of information can it have? You can type it in your chat box. How many types of information or how many types of data? I'm waiting for your response. Qualitative, quantitative. Okay. See, when you ask someone that what is your name, what subject have you studied, So you are seeking some information, and this information will be, many of you have said it rightly, the qualitative information. If you want to study what are the laws, okay, and therefore when you study the section this and this, all these are the qualitative information. So information is of two types. One is a qualitative information, and therefore you can say qualitative research. And another will be the quantitative information, and therefore you can say quantitative research. So these are the two types of researches, and the base of this is the nature of data, or you can say type of information. And in your case, majority of the time, you will be having the qualitative data. So most of the time, you will be doing the qualitative research. But it is possible that sometime you may have a quantitative data, and therefore you may do the quantitative research also. I was going through some of the titles of the PhDs which have been uploaded on the Shodh Ganga, and I will share one title there, and then we'll try to just open one dialogue and then try to understand it. So that is the one way to categorize. And you know, the qualitative information, may be converted into quantitative. You know that when there is a test and you write the answer which you are writing, it is qualitative in nature. But when your teacher reads your answer, then the teacher will give the marks. So teacher is converting the qualitative information into quantitative. But from quantitative, you cannot get back the original quality. It is not possible. So therefore, it is important for the researchers that if you have a qualitative information, please continue with the qualitative information. Do not convert it into quantitative, because if you convert it into quantitative, then you may be losing some of the information, and which information you have lost, you will not be able to find it out. So this is very important. So in your case, most of the time, you will be having the qualitative information, but it is possible you may have a quantitative information also. So this is the one way to classify the researches. There is another way to classify the researches. And I think that quickly I tell you, but in that you may use one particular or you may not use at all. One is, if you want to study the vision of any person, then this will be the philosophical research. If you want to study the vision of any person, then this is a this will be the philosophical research. And I don't think you will be doing the philosophical studies. Mahatma Gandhi had a vision. If you study Mahatma Gandhi and try to find out whether he has talked something about the law. I think he did talk about that law abiding. Okay, that we should follow the law, and think he was talking at some point of time. So if you want to study that, then that becomes a philosophical. If you want to study the past, and the past is historical research, I think you may do that, because you do go to the past decisions which have been given by the different courts, and you do use them very carefully. And I have been reading in the newspaper sometime that they do quote that in such and such case, this was the decision and these were the evidences, etc. So you may like to do a historical research. You may also try to do you may like to study the things in the present context. And when it is the present context, then it has to be survey research. So you may like to do a survey research. You know that you can do survey that what are the regions that some of the people, they violate the law. Why people are violating the law? If you want to do that, then you have to do a survey research. So you have to go to the field and you have to collect the data. Now this survey research will be of three types. One is called exploratory survey. And I don't think you do the exploratory survey, but you may do a descriptive survey. It is possible you may do a correlational survey also. So these are the three under the survey one. And then next is that you may like to study something which will be useful for the future. And anything which is used for the future right now, the many scientists are conducting researches in their laboratory to find out some remedy of the COVID-19 experiment they are doing. And once they come out with the result, then only then people will be using it. So anything which will be used for the future, it will be experimental research. Okay, and in your case, it is possible that you may do the experiment. I know that the traffic police people, for those people who violate the laws, so they were giving them a flower, okay, and then they were telling them that no, you should not. This is one way. Now you may like to do a research and some experimental research, that if you do like this, will you be able to educate the people? Will you be able to create awareness amongst the people so that they are able to follow whatever the rules are there, the traffic rules or the other rules are there? Okay, and so you may do some sort of a experimental research. You may also like to study something special. And when you do study something special, that is what is called the case study research. I think in law, it is possible to do the case study, because there are many cases which the High Court and the Supreme Court, they have dealt with, and they were very, very peculiar cases, and they have given the decision, and therefore, if you like, you may like to study something like that, but it has to be very, very, very special. It cannot be common. So this is another way, and if you are classifying the researches like this, then we say methodology followed. Okay, and you see philosophical researches are pure qualitative in nature. Historical researches are major qualitative and some quantitative. Survey research are qualitative as well as quantitative. Experimental research are more quantitative, and case study research are qualitative and quantitative. So qualitative and quantitative are the two types of information which will be there here. So the qualitative research and quantity, they overlap. There is another way to classify it, and that is, one is called the basic research, or it is called fundamental research, or it is called the theoretical research. Okay, so that is the one, and another is called experimental research. And the another is what is called the action research. Okay, now I have already, the theoretical researches are pure qualitative in nature, and experimental research will be pure quantitative in nature, and action research will also be the quantitative in nature. All the laws, the sections, etc., all your dharas, whatever you have, they are just the theories. Okay, so therefore you may have something like a theory. So here you can say the degree of the law which in India we have, and there are international laws. Now all these laws, they have international laws are applicable all over the world, I suppose. But our Indian laws are applicable only within India. Okay, so therefore this is a part of the theory. The experimental researches, they have very limited utility. So therefore I can differentiate them on the basis of degree of applicability, or I can call them degree of utility. Now, your theoretical researches are nothing but qualitative in nature. Experimental research and action research are quantitative in nature. This is just in short, I have given you the types of the researches. Now next, I would like to just focus on now coming to one aspect, that the research is a process. And if research is a process, there must be steps. Can any one of you tell me the steps of the research? What can be the first step of the research? So you can write in your chat box and I will see. Okay, somebody asked, how do we convert the qualitative into quantitative? You know that in examination, the student write the answer, this is qualitative in nature, and the teacher will read it and teacher will assign the marks, that is quantitative. So teacher is converting a qualitative information into quantitative. When you were the student, you were doing the assignments, and the teacher was checking the assignment, and sometimes the teacher was giving marks. So this is how you convert a qualitative information into quantitative. Yes, some of you have written it correctly. That first step of the research, the first step of the research is identification of problem. My dear friend, here I like to tell you, it is not the selection of problem. There is a difference between identification of problem and the selection of problem. Now, identification is a broader word and selection is a narrow. So selection is a part of identification. You always start with a broad one, and then you slowly narrow it down. And once it becomes so narrow that you cannot further narrow down, and that's what exactly is the selection. Okay. Now problem. Can any one of you tell me what is another word for the problem? Another word for the problem. Another word for the problem. Okay, no answer is coming. Issues, okay. Issues, okay. Research gap, all right. Okay, another word for the problem is variable. So in literature, the word is problem, but variable and problem can be used interchangeably. So in the books, you will not find the first step as identification of variable because it doesn't fit in there. If you say selection of a variable, then it is all right. But selection is narrower. So you have to use the word identification, and another word for problem is variable. Dear friends, if there would not have been variables on this particular planet, then it would not have been possible to conduct the research. The research we are conducting because there are problems, and we try to find out the solution of the problems. So we must understand the variable. What is a variable? What are its type, etc., etc. That is very important. Now, in this one, identification of problem, as a researcher, what am I supposed to do? So let me take this on the next page. Now, in the identification of the problem, what is the first thing that as a researcher one has to do? Say you have to have a variable. Minimum, there must be one variable. It is not possible to carry on the research without a variable. So each problem must have minimum one variable, and maximum, of course, it can depend upon the researcher. And once you have the variable, then you should be able to write the title. I'm sure you know there is a title of a book, there is a title of a research paper, and there is a title of a research. And all these three, they differ. So as a researcher, I must know the difference amongst these. And therefore, we must understand whether a title should be broad versus narrow versus specific. That's one important thing. The next important thing that as a researcher you must understand is so then when you are writing a title, what all information must be given in the title. I'm sure you might have read some of the title of the past researches which might be available in your library, or they are available on the Shodh Ganga. And if you see the title, when you read the title, sometimes you may feel that the title is complete, but sometimes you feel that the title is not complete, that some information is missing here. And if you put that information, then the title will become complete. So therefore, as a researcher, I must know what all information or which information must be given in the title. Which information should be given in the title. As a researcher, I must know. I have taken from the Shodh Ganga, I was searching what type of researches the people do from the discipline of law. And I have one title with me. I will share if there is a time, otherwise I will read and will point out the problem with that particular title. The another thing is we must know that can we start the title with the word to. And the last thing that we should know, can we put a full stop? Okay, these are the things which we must know as far as the title is concerned. And if I do not know these things, then it makes I may not be able to write the title of the research, which may be the appropriate title. I may be writing an inappropriate title. Here, dear friends, I tell you that the government, UGC, they have said many a times, the Ministry of Education have said many a times that in India, the quality of research is very poor. And even for the first time, the President of India, when he was addressing the nation, he did bring it in his presentation that the quality of research in India is very poor. And efforts are being made to improve the quality. And I do not know whether it is showing some positive result or it is neutral. But nevertheless, this coursework has come, is one step in the right direction where the quality of research may be improved. Okay. Now, once you have selected the variable, you have written a title, then you should be able to write objective. So in one research, you must have minimum one objective, but if you want, you can write more than one objective. In India, normally we write objective as a heading, but in some of the places in India and outside India, they write research question as a heading. So when you are writing either a research question or the objective, both can be used interchangeably. But when you are writing the heading as objective, you must write it in a simple sentence. But when you are writing the heading as research question, that simple sentence must be converted into the question form. That is the only difference. Otherwise, there is no difference between both. And in many of the places, there is a confusion that they think that research question and hypothesis can be used interchangeably. My dear friend, the answer is no. Because research question is a research question. And what is hypothesis? I'll tell you within a second. So therefore, if either you can write a heading research question, and then below this you can write your question, whatever you have in your mind, and through research, you will like to find the solution. Okay. But if you do not want to write a heading like research question, you may write the heading like objective, no problem at all. So in one research, you may have as many research questions or as many objectives you like. Now, when you are writing the research questions or the objective, now important is, should they be broad versus narrow versus pinpoint. That is what is more important. The next is, when I'm writing the objective, I may write in the sentence form or question form. That depends upon the researcher, no problem at all. Now, these are the three activities which must be done by the researcher. And if these have been done, then step number 1 is over. Now, can any one of you quickly tell me, as a researcher, should I first write the title and then think of the variable and then write objective? Or should I first think of a variable and then write the title and then write the objective? Or should I first write the title and then write the objective and then think of the variable? What should the sequence among these three? Let me see who is giving the answer. Okay. 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 I have got many answers. Some have written first variable, then title, and then objective. Some have written first variable, then objective, then research question or title. Okay. All right. Let me tell you, dear friends, as a researcher, you have to select the variable. You may write it on your piece of paper, or you may keep it in your mind. After that, you have to write a title, because the title will be narrow and you have one title of a research and you may have more than one research questions. So your research questions will be pinpointed and your title is narrow, because from one particular title, you can have 10 research questions, 15 research questions, no problem at all. Okay, so the correct sequence, some of you have said, is first you have to select the variable, because without that you cannot proceed further. because when you are writing the title, there must be mention of the variable. So you should have a title, and after that you should have your objectives or research question, only one, anyone you like. Now, once you have done this, then of course you proceed further, and then the step of the research is, can any one of you tell me what is the second step of the research? The second step of the research. I'm waiting for your answer. Okay, all right. Now, see, when you have to select the variable, then you must know the source, and that is called sources of problem. And I have told you the problem and variable, they can be used interchangeably. So therefore, the sources of problem are many. One of the source of the problem can be review of related literature. Another can be unutilized theories. Another can be papers presented in the seminar or conferences. So I'm not touching that because you have not given me time. So therefore, the review of related literature is a part and parcel of step number 1. And it cannot be the independent step, because it will also help you in step number 2 and step number 3. Any aspect of the research which helps you in different steps cannot become an independent steps in itself. And many of the books which you might be reading, they have given review of related literature as a separate step, which is technically incorrect. Okay, so therefore your second step will be because here the first is your identification of a problem, and here in the first step, the last thing that you are doing is you are writing either the objectives or you are writing the research questions. Once you have a research question, once the question comes to your mind, then sometime you start thinking about its solution. And when you are thinking about the solution of the problem, this solution for one particular problem, you may think not one solution, many solutions may come to your mind. And when you are thinking those solutions, that is what is called your hypothesis. So second step will be formulation of hypothesis. And how do I define hypothesis? Let me give you the definition of hypothesis. Hypothesis is the tentative solution of the problem. Another will be hypothesis is the intelligent guess about the solution of the problem. So hypothesis is the intelligent guess about the solution of the problem. And another definition is hypothesis is the conjectural statement about the solution of the problem. These are the different definitions of hypothesis. In the first one, you say it is a tentative solution. That makes it not a final solution. It is the intelligent guess. Okay, so it is not a guess and it's a conjectural statement. Now, you know, when you present a case in the court, you try to collect the evidences. You know, so when you are trying to collect the evidences, why these evidences are to be collected? Because by putting those evidences, then you like to tell that this is what has happened. Okay, so therefore, whenever there is a problem, one may think of the solution. And for one problem, there may be multiple solutions. And I'm sure people from judiciary, they have a divergent thinking. Because without divergent thinking, it is very, very difficult to go ahead with this particular discipline. If people from science also have a divergent thinking. But people from science, they start with divergency, but they come to the convergency. But people from law, mostly they have divergency because you have many, many things. So you do not have a final solution. So hypothesis is the tentative solution. See, when I'm not well, I go to the doctor. Doctor will examine me, and after examining, he may say that most probably you are having this problem. And then he can prescribe the medicine and he will tell me that you start taking these medicines, but go to the pathology lab and get these tests done. Why doctor is asking me to have these tests from the pathology lab? Because whatever the doctor is thinking, that is tentative. And he wants to confirm it on the basis of the pathology testing, the results of the pathology. So your tentative solution must be tested. Now, when you say intelligent guess, it is an intelligent guess only. So it has to be tested. Or conjectural statement, again the same thing. So that means if you have a hypothesis, the hypothesis has to be tested. So you have to test the hypothesis. And if you have to test the hypothesis, the people from the science, they do their experiment in the laboratories to test their hypothesis. But the people from social science or humanities or law, etc., they do not have a lab. So what they do is they test the hypothesis with the help of statistical techniques. So they will be using the statistical technique to test the hypothesis. And when they use the statistical technique, then they must have the quantitative data or quantitative information. Now, please listen carefully. If you have the quantitative information or quantitative data, then you can analyze it with the help of a statistical technique, and you can test the hypothesis. Then you must formulate the hypothesis. I repeat, if you have a quantitative data which can be analyzed with the help of a statistical technique, then you can test the hypothesis and you must formulate the hypothesis. But if you have a qualitative data which cannot be analyzed with the help of a statistical technique, then you cannot test the hypothesis, and then you should not formulate the hypothesis. I repeat, if you have a qualitative data which cannot be analyzed with the help of a statistical technique, then you cannot test the hypothesis, and then you should not formulate the hypothesis. So therefore, formulation of hypothesis will be an optional step. It will not be in all types of the researches. This step will be only if you have the quantitative data. But if you have the qualitative data only, then it cannot be. But if you have a qualitative data which can be converted into quantitative, and then you can analyze with the help of a statistical technique, then you can test a hypothesis. So then you can formulate the hypothesis. So my dear friends, that if you want to formulate the hypothesis, the important point is that you should have the quantitative data, the quantitative information. If your qualitative information can be converted into quantitative, then you can have no problem. But if your qualitative information cannot be converted into quantitative, then you cannot. So this is one important information then I thought I should give you. So that is the one thing about the hypothesis. So I have given you the definition of the hypothesis I have given. If there is any participant like to ask any question, you can put in your chat box. I'm coming to the methodology. Where that methodology will come, I'll come to that. Okay, any other? You want to ask a question at this point? Then I proceed further. Okay. Now, my dear friends, then as far as the hypothesis is concerned, once you know the definition, and from the definition, you know that you have to have a base. So there are bases of formulating the hypothesis. Let me see, there is a question. What is the question? Sir, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Someone wants to ask a question. Please.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sir, hypothesis should be, often we hear that somebody says hypothesis should be, in a paragraph form. Somebody says it should be point wise. Somebody says it should be one single statement. So what is one, like, how to go about it?
Yes, I'm going to come to that particular point, and then you will definitely see that, and then you ask a question if your question is not answered.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now, so therefore, then you must know the basis of hypothesis. Please see, it is not your sweet will to formulate the hypothesis. You must have a strong base, And if you do not have a base, then of course you will not be able to that. So you must have the basis. And there are different bases. I will tell you that. Now, once you know the basis of formulating the hypothesis, then you must know then the types of hypothesis, and you must know the forms of hypothesis. Can any one of you tell me, do you know the types of hypothesis and forms of hypothesis? Can you answer the types of hypothesis? What are types of hypothesis?
So I know two.
What are those?
So null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis.
All right.
So
My dear, these are not the types of hypothesis. These are called the forms of hypothesis. That is unfortunate. The books which some of you are reading, they are not giving you the correct information. Okay, all right. The types of hypothesis and forms of hypothesis, there is a difference. The types of hypothesis are three. One is called research hypothesis. So one is called a research hypothesis. Another is called a statistical hypothesis. And another is called a operational hypothesis. These are the three types of hypothesis. It is the sweet will of the researcher to formulate either a research hypothesis or a statistical hypothesis or a operational hypothesis. In one particular research, for one particular variable, only one type of hypothesis must be formulated. It is possible for some objective, you may formulate a research hypothesis. In the same research, for another objective, you may like to formulate a statistical hypothesis. It is possible. And in the same research, for some other objective, you may like to formulate an operational hypothesis. These are the types of hypothesis. And it is the sweet will. You need not to consider any other point except that it is your sweet will. But if you come to the form, there are two forms available, as you rightly said. One is called null form. It is not called types. It is called null form. And another is called directional form, or you can say alternative form. Okay, so these are the forms. When you decide to formulate research hypothesis, your research hypothesis may be in the null form or maybe in the directional form. Now, to decide the form, you must have a base. Whether it should be in the null form or directional form, there is a base. Without base, you cannot. See, all of you have a lot of experience that in court, if you do not give the evidences, then you cannot conclude what you want to say. So here also, that when you have the some evidences, then you can say it is the null or the directional. You have to test this. Your statistical hypothesis may be formulated in the null form or directional form. your operational hypothesis may be formulated in the directional form or null form. So to decide null and direction, there are bases. So I will try to see how much I can tell you right now. Okay. Now then another is, once you know the forms, then you must know the wording of the hypothesis. And if you want to word the hypothesis, you must know which tense you should use. Should the hypothesis be worded in the present tense or past tense or future tense? What do you think? No, please, null hypothesis is not zero hypothesis. The concept of zero is very different. Null hypothesis. What is null? I will tell you. Can anyone of tell me, when I am formulating the hypothesis, should I formulate hypothesis in the present tense, in the past tense, or in the future tense? Which tense do you think? Okay, someone has said present. Correct. So the hypothesis must be in the present tense. So you know this, correct. And when I am wording the hypothesis, why am I wording it in the present tense? Because there is a base. Without base, I will not be able to word hypothesis in the present tense. And then when I'm wording the hypothesis, or when I'm writing the hypothesis, I must use the word significance. So these are the two things which you should know as far as the wording of a hypothesis is concerned. Once we have worded the hypothesis, then it is a testing. And if I want to test the hypothesis, there are two technical words. One technical word is degree of freedom. And another technical word is level of significance. I'm sure you know both the concept, that degree of freedom. Do you know the concept of degree of freedom? Sir, can you please clarify the difference between types? Yes, I will do that. Don't worry about it. All right. So therefore, we must know what is the concept of degree of freedom and what is the concept of the level of significance. Once we have done that, then I must know that there are two types of the test. One is called one-tailed test, and another is called the two-tailed test. So we must know when to use one-tailed test and when to use two-tailed test. It's very important. And next, we must know that whenever we are conducting a research, we use one technical word, and that technical word is error. And you know, there is one more technical word. Of course, I will not say technical, general word, mistake. Can any one of you tell me the difference between mistake and error? The difference between mistake and error. What is the difference between mistake and error? If you know the difference, please let me know the difference between mistake and error. I'm waiting for your answer. The difference between mistake and error.
Sir, if may I?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I guess error is something which we cannot avoid.
Okay.
It means with respect to basically with respect to when we are doing this survey research or something like that, quantitative research.
Okay.
Mistake is something which may happen.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't know whether I'm correct or not, but error is something which we cannot avoid. Something like that.
Okay. And mistake?
So mistake is something which unintentionally is happening. Means like yeah, like
Go ahead.
mistake is something while doing the research, the researcher is doing some mistake, and error is something which is because of your data collection or because of something you will have to have that marginal thing in between, that this much error will be there. It
Okay.
will not be 100%.
All right. See, mistake means mistake can be identified and it can be corrected. I repeat, mistake can be identified and it can be corrected. Error, you do not know. You do not know why such a such thing is happening. Let me give you one concrete example. You know, many times when the doctor operates a patient, during operation, you must have found that sometimes the blood comes out and the doctor is trying to find out the source from where the blood is coming out. And he is unable to find that source from where the blood is coming out. So it's not a mistake, this is the error. He has done something, but he is unable to find out. So error, something about which you may not be knowing. And whatever you are doing, there are chances of error. Whenever the decision is given by the court or by the Supreme Court, you know, sometime the people, they get that particular reviewed because thinking that there is something that has happened. So now when you wash your hand, and after washing, if you take it under the microscope, you will find our hands might be dirty. So that is what is error, because you cannot bring it to zero. Now, Chandrayaan 2 was launched for the first time, and the scientists could find some mistake and they corrected it. But when it was launched the second time, it did not land at the designated point. It landed 4 point some kilometers before that point. And the scientists were trying to find out what has happened. So that was an error. Because of the error that has happened. So whatever you do, nothing can be error free. So there will be some error, and each researcher is allowed some percentage of error. And what is that? I will tell you. So therefore, another thing I was to tell you is there is something called type 1 error, and another is called type 2 error. Dear friend, this much you need to understand as far as the formulation of hypothesis is concerned. And I'm sure this much cannot be covered in just one period. Absolutely no. In 1 hour, no. It takes a lot of time. So you please tell me precisely how much you want to understand from me in this particular lecture about the hypothesis. So you think about it, and meanwhile, I'll tell you the other steps. The next step is the data collection. Because once you have the identification of problem and you have selected the problem and you have formulated the hypothesis because you have a quantitative one, the next comes that you have to collect the data. Why? Because you want to test your hypothesis. But if you have your qualitative data, so in case of qualitative research, your second step cannot be formulation of hypothesis. Then your second step will be data collection. But if you have a quantitative data, then your second step is formulation of hypothesis, and your third step will be data collection. So therefore, that's the difference, that in qualitative, you do not have anything like a hypothesis. So you have the identification of problem as step number one, and then you have the data collection, the step number two. But if you have the quantitative data, then you have to have the formulation of hypothesis, and then the third step will be your collection, data collection. Now, when I think of collecting the data, then as a researcher, I must know that from where to collect the data. And when I'm saying from where to collect the data, then I'm talking about the population. I'm talking about the sampling. So we must know about this sampling. And when we talk about the sampling, there are many important concepts which you should understand. One is universe, population, sample, frame, and then you must know the different sampling techniques. Which sampling technique to use when? All these you should know it. And after that, you should know which tool you want to use to collect the data. In law, you use the word tool, but in law, you do use instrument. Because many times you get some of the scientists to do some of the, say, examination, and for which they use the instrument. You know, you do some DNA test or something like that because you require that information as a evidence to put before the court. So therefore, you must know the tool. And when you are talking about the tool, you must know the characteristics. Because whatever the data you will have, the quality of the data will depend upon the quality of the tool. So you must know what are those characteristics. Then you must know the types of the tool. And you know, you have asked me to talk on reliability and validity. Now, when I talk about the reliability and validity, my dear friends, then you should know about the tool, the characteristics. You must know the characteristics of the tool. You must know the difference between measurement and assessment. measurement and assessment. I don't know whether you know or not. Then you must know about the types of tool. Okay. And then you must know about the steps of developing and standardization of tool. And in that, when we go to the development and standardization of the tool, then I will be talking about the reliability and the validity, because that is one step. And you just asked me to talk about the reliability and validity. But in order to understand and appreciate those things, you must know all these things. So therefore, that become the part and parcel of the steps of developing and standardization of the tool, the reliability and validity. And then you must know something about norms, the concept of the norms. All these, of course, are important. And then you must know the methodology. Now, this methodology, you know that some of you may do a survey research, and some of you may not do experimental researches. Because in law, I do not know whether it is possible, but I think it is possible. Because whenever you are training the people for, or you are creating awareness, how should we create awareness amongst masses? Some of you may do an experimental study. It is possible. So under methodology, as far as the survey is concerned, nothing to be said. As far as historical research is concerned, it is historical research or historical method, we must know. Because in historical one, there are two important sources. Can you tell me what are the important sources that you have to consider under historical research? They are two. One is called a primary source and another is called a secondary source. And in law, you have to depend upon the primary source. Of course, if you are not able to have primary evidences from the primary source, then you go to the secondary source. That's all right, fine. Okay, but historical researches will not be field based. You have the literature, and then another is your experimental. So you may do experimental research. And for experimental research, you have many things. I'm not going to tell you all that because time doesn't permit. And once you have done this, you have collected the data, then next step is a data analysis. And if you have the qualitative data, then there are other techniques available to analyze the qualitative data. And if you have a quantitative data, then there are many statistical techniques available for you. And if you have to talk about hypothesis, that means you must have the quantitative data. Because if you do not have a quantitative data, then you cannot talk about the hypothesis. And if you do that, then you must be having a quantitative data. And if you have quantitative data, then you must analyze with the help of the statistical technique. And then you must know the statistical technique. That's a very important thing. Okay. And once you have analyzed your data, then next is conclusion. You come to your finding, whatever it is. Now, these are the steps which a researcher is supposed to follow, and he or she must follow in this particular sequence. Okay. Now, what I have been asked is that I should, okay, there are many questions. If you can take a single hypothesis as an example and discuss, yes, I'll do that. Just now I'll do. I have a question related to the hypothesis. I have not started hypothesis, then you can ask me. All the of the hypothesis enumerated by you, sir. Okay, all right. Let me now tell you. Now, before I come to the hypothesis business, let me tell you a few things about the variable. Because if you do not understand the variable, then you will not be able to understand the hypothesis. So let me tell you about variable. Do you know how many types of variable? How many types of variable? Types of variable. Any one of you can tell me.
Sir, if may I?
Yes, go ahead.
So there are two types of variables, basically, the independent variable and the dependent variable. The two that I know of.
Naturally. Whatever you know, you cannot tell me what you do not know.
Of course.
All right, thank you very much. Now, please, do you want a break?
Sir, whatever is suitable to you, sir. Otherwise, we are well interested in listening to you.
No, I'm perfectly all right. I don't want break.
Okay.
You can ask the participants.
Ma'am, Shobhlata
Sure.
ma'am, what do
Shobhlata
you
ma'am?
suggest?
Yes.
Ma'am, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Ma'am,
Yes,
should
sir.
we take a break between the sessions?
The break is dependent upon the speaker and the participants. Speaker is wonderful carrying on. If you are interested and he is not tired, what is important is we need to understand that he has to be comfortable.
Exactly.
I'm very comfortable.
So if he is comfortable, if you would like to have a cup of tea, I cannot serve him from here. Otherwise, I would have done that also.
No, don't worry.
Had it been offline, dear, let me tell you, everything would be with him. And we would stand back and corner for him. But now, because it is online, I can't do that. And that's why we say, can you have a break? So if he needs it, comfortable, we will give. If you people feel that, well, we need something to digest, some time to digest, we will give you. But if you feel that you want a continuity, it's between both of you.
So I think I will wait for the participant reaction. Just within a second, please tell me, do you want break? Yes or no? Because I don't want.
Then, sir, I think very well. Let's continue the session, sir.
No break. All right. So let me tell you the types of the variable. The types of the variable which some of you have given is the independent variable, dependent variable, and intervening variables. My dear friend, these are the types of the variable which you will use only if you are conducting an experimental study. And if you are not conducting an experimental study, then you cannot say that your variable will be independent variable, dependent variable, and intervening variables. Now, can you think of some other name of the variables which you will like to use when you conduct a research? Can you think of the variable which are not independent, dependent, and intervening? All right. These are one variable is called continuous variable. And another variable is called discontinuous. These, or you also can call it a discrete variable. These are the two types of the variable which will be there everywhere. Even if you are conducting a survey research or a historical research or a case study, these will be the general type of variable. And this is what is not properly given in many books. Because as you have said, independent, dependent, that is only when you conduct an experimental study. You know, the continuous variable are those variables for which you can have information in the whole number as well as in fraction. Whole as well as in fraction. For example, that when you have weight, so somebody will say, my weight is 62 kg. Somebody will say, my weight is 50.6 kg. So therefore, weight is in whole number as well as in fraction. So it becomes a continuous variable. You know your height is a continuous variable. You know your achievement. The marks which you are getting, achievement in whatever, say, I'll say law. So when you are conducting a test and you are checking it and you are giving marks, you out of 50, you may give 30 marks or you may give 30.5 marks. Normally in higher education, you do not put fractions, but if when you were in the school, you must have experienced some of your teachers were giving marks up to 0.75, 2/3. So therefore, achievement is this. You say stress. Okay. You say power of a lens. Okay. See cost of books. You know, now we do not have in paisa. Otherwise, earlier it used to be in paisa. You know, when you go to the malls, sometime you find the price written on it is 40.99. Okay. So therefore, the cost of books or cost of anything is, say, speed of car. Okay. See time of running, etc. There are so many variables. All these variables are continuous variables because you will always get the quantitative data, and that will be in the whole number or maybe in the fraction also. But there are many variables, like for example, languages. Now it may be English, Malayalam, maybe Gujarati, maybe Marathi, etc., etc. You cannot have any language between two languages. So it is discrete. The gender is discrete. You know that types of universities is discrete. You know colors is discrete. There are 7 colors. But if you say intensity of the red color, then it becomes a continuous variable. Intensity of red color. It becomes a continuous variable, but when it is a color, then it is a discontinuous variable. If you say locality, or you can say area of residence, okay, say countries, subjects. There are so many variables. These variables will always be discrete or discontinuous. And you cannot convert a discontinuous variable into a continuous variable. But if you have a continuous variable, then you can, if like, convert it into discontinuous variable. For example, if you have weight, then you can divide people into high, average, and low. So when weight is a continuous variable, but I can make in my research a discrete variable by dividing my group, my sample into high, average, and low. Say, for example, when you have achievement, on the basis of achievement, when you say that student pass or fail, these, so on the basis of achievement, on the basis of marks, achievement is a continuous variable. But when you say such and such student has passed and such student has failed, now you have converted achievement a continuous variable. Now you are treating it as a discrete variable. So a continuous variable may be converted into discrete variable, but a discrete variable can never be converted into continuous variable. So therefore, these are the 2 types of variable. I did not give you the definition of a variable, thinking that you know the definition. And if you do not know, please tell me so that I can give you the definition. Do you want definition of a variable? Okay, fine. I'm not giving, thinking that you know it. And then you know, okay, somebody say yes. Okay, all right. Let me give you the definition of a variable. Say changeable characteristics. Changeable characteristic is called variable. Any characteristic which cannot change will not be a variable, and that is what is called a constant. So constant is something which cannot change with respect to time or person or place, whatever it is. Now you know gender. Someone is male and someone is female. So it now the transgender is also coming. So gender is a variable. Now if I say the number of hours in day and night, I ask anyone, everyone will say 24 hours. If I ask you number of days in a week, everybody will say 7 days. So that means when I talk like that, then that is constant. Like number of days in a week, okay? Or the value of pi. You know, the value of pi is 22 by 7. You ask anyone you like, everybody will say 22 by 7. If you ask that how many paisa in 1 rupee, how many seconds in 1 hour, everybody will say the same thing. So all these, they become your constant, and they can never be made variable. It is not possible. Okay. Now, right now, I'm talking to the people who belong to a particular subject like law. So I have now subject is a variable, but right at the moment, it is not a variable because each one of you belong to the same subject. So here, subject or discipline has been made constant. It is not constant, has been made constant. This is the technical word you should use. Because in law, you have to use technical words, and they are very precise. So a variable may be held constant. So therefore it is possible. Okay, now I can make any variable constant. It depends upon me. If I want to conduct a study by taking only males, then I am keeping gender as a constant. If I take the people only from the urban area, then I'm keeping the local or residential background as constant. If I take only people who speak Gujarati, then I'm keeping language as a constant. So a variable may be held constant, but a constant can never be made variable. So therefore, let me tell you, a variable may be held constant, but a constant cannot be made variable. I hope you have understood. Okay, so the types of the variable, if anybody asks you, you should say one is a continuous variable and another is a discontinuous variable. But if, and these are the types of the variable which will be in all types of researches. But if you take the case of experimental research, then in experimental research, The types of variable are now what you people have said is independent variable, or this is also called many times treatment. Okay, I will give example, nothing to worry about it. And then another is called dependent variable. Okay, now let me give you one example, then I think you will be able to understand what I am talking. Say suppose you know that some of you might be doing your physical exercises. Why are you doing your physical exercise? Because you want to keep yourself healthy. So that makes the physical exercise, okay, you are doing physical exercise to keep yourself healthy. So by changing the physical exercise, you can bring change in your health status. Okay, let me take another. So the changes in the health may be brought by changing the physical exercises. Some people may do yoga, some people may go to gym, and some people may not go to gym, they may run, etc. There may be different type of physical exercises. So by changing the physical exercises, you can bring change in the health. So the changes in the health will be due to the change in the physical exercise, and therefore health will become the dependent variable and physical exercise will become the independent variable. Because by changing the physical exercises, I can bring change in the health. Let me take another example. So your physical exercise becomes independent variable and your health will become, say, dependent variable. Let me take another one. Say, methods of teaching and understanding. You can bring change in the understanding of the people by changing your method. If you are a teacher and teaching in the class, then you know which method you should use so that majority of the people, they start understanding. So the understanding becomes a dependent variable and your methods of teaching becomes a independent variable and your understanding becomes a dependent variable. So you can bring change in the understanding by changing the methods of teaching. You know, when we are not well, then doctor gives us medicine. So medicine will depend on what disease I have, or it is what from which I am suffering. So depending upon this, then and only then the medicine will be given. So medicine will be independent variable and whatever is the ailment is the dependent variable. Okay. Now your physical exercise can be your running, as I have said, it can be yoga or it can be anything. So this becomes a discontinuous variable. So your independent variable or your treatment will always be discontinuous. Will always be discontinuous variable. See, your methods of teaching. It may be lecture method, it may be discussion method, it may be seminar method, or it may be some other method. So it's a discontinuous variable. But your dependent variable is health, which is a continuous variable. Your understanding means achievement is a continuous variable. So your dependent variable will always be continuous variable. So your independent variable is always a discontinuous variable, and dependent variable is always a continuous variable. So these are the two types of variable, continuous or discontinuous, which are general. But if you are conducting an experimental study, then and only then you should use the words like independent variable and dependent variable. You cannot use independent variable and dependent variable words when you are conducting a survey study, or when you are doing a case study, or when you are doing a historical or any other type of research. It's not possible. Okay. The third type of variable you people also wrote is a intervening variable. Now, intervening variable will always be in experimental research, but intervening variable may be in survey research also. And when you have a survey research, then we have different methods of controlling or taking care of the intervening variables. But if you are conducting an experimental study, then there are many methods of controlling intervening variable. It's a very, very important one, but only in case of experimental research. Your intervening variable may be continuous. This may be continuous or discontinuous. It may be continuous variable or it may be discontinuous variable. So that means now you have understood. Now this intervening variable will be of two types, and the two types of the intervening variable are one is called, right now when you are listening to me, and the place, the room where you are sitting, if you are getting a outside noise, then it is quite possible that sometime you might be missing what I am talking. Now that is acting as a intervening variable because it intervenes, and this is outside the process. Now, right now, when you are talking, when I am talking to you and you are listening me, your concentration in between, if your concentration is breaking, then it is possible that you may miss some of my sentences, and that acts as a intervening variable. if some of you might be feeling uncomfortable, and because of that uncomfortableness, sometimes you may not be able to pay attention what I am saying. Now that uncomfortableness becomes an intervening variable. If there is a outside noise, the temperature in the room, all these becomes the intervening variables. So intervening variables are of two types. One is called intrinsic intervening variable. Another is called extrinsic intervening variable. Intrinsic means inside the process, and extrinsic means outside the process. You know that sometime when somebody is talking to you, you are trying, you are looking towards that person, but inside something else might be going on. And whatever keeps on going on inside your mind, that is intrinsic. And sometimes because you are not paying attention, so sometimes you may say, please pardon me, can you repeat, what did you say? Why you are saying, please repeat? Because you were involved somewhere else mentally. Physically you are here, but mentally you may not be here. So the intrinsic intervening variable and extrinsic intervening variable. In experimental study, you know that you have to take, some of you must be the science students at your school time, and in the science you are asked to take precautions. Why precautions? Just to take care of the intervening variables. You know, when the doctor comes to the hospital for operation, he has to change his clothes. He puts on the sterilized clothes, and you know the color. Now, why he puts on that sterilized clothes? Because when he came from his home to the hospital, on the way, there might have been lot of germs on his dress. And if he goes along with that dress inside, then the germs will be there and it is harmful to the person, the patient whom he is going to operate. So therefore, in order to control that, he has to put on the sterilized clothes. Then he has to put on the gloves. Then he has to put on the mask. Why is he doing? Because he is trying to control the intervening variables. Okay, so your intrinsic intervening variable or extrinsic intervening variable. This extrinsic intervening variable is also called confounding variable. Extrinsic variable is also called confounding variable. And my dear friend, it is not possible to control all intervening variable, and that is why many times there are failures. In India, many rockets have been launched, many satellites have been launched, and they cannot say that all in launching the satellite there is 100% success. No. Why that 100% success is not there? Because of the intervening variables. So therefore, these are the three names: independent variable, dependent variable, and intervening variables. And these must be used in experimental research, but your intervening variable may also be used in survey research. Of course, not in historical research. Okay. Then there is one more type of variable, and that is called concomitant variable. Now, right now, when you are listening to me, all of you do not have the same skin color. Different people are with different skin colors. Are you understanding according to your skin color? I'm sure you will say no. But skin color is a variable. It is in the process, but it does not bring change in your understanding. So this becomes a concomitant variable. Now, all participants may not be having the same height. Different participants are having different heights. Are you understanding according to your heights? Then you will say no. But height is a variable. It is in the process, but it does not bring change in the dependent variable in the presence of independent variable. So such variables are called concomitant variables. So concomitant variable is one which is in the process but do not bring change in independent variable in the presence of independent variable. So there are so many. Our skin color is an independent variable, weight is an independent weight is a concomitant variable, skin color is a concomitant variable, height is a concomitant, but language is not a concomitant variable. Because language, some of you might not understand and some of you may understand, so language is not a concomitant. Now, height is a concomitant variable in the teaching learning process, but in basketball, if you are playing the basketball in physical education, then height becomes a intervening variable. So sometimes a variable might be an intervening variable and that might be a concomitant variable in some other research. There might be concomitant variable in one research and that variable in some other research may become an intervening variable. So you should understand that these are the another way to classify the variables. So now I have told you the types of the variable. Now there are sources of the variable and that we call it a sources of problem. So I'm not going to tell you that sources of the problem, but just I'm passing the reference. Sources of problem. And the different sources of problem are, one is review of related literature. Another is the theory, or if I write it precisely, unutilized theory. Unutilized, or you can say underutilized. theory, and then another is the seminar or the conference. These might be the different sources of the problem. So I am not going to deal with all these in detail, otherwise it will take a lot of time. Now, once you have selected the variable, then you should be able to write title. Should I tell you how to write the title or not? Should I tell you how to write the title? Or should I just leave it? Okay, I should write. Then, my dear friend, how will I complete hypothesis? Okay, let me say I have got one title, just I am putting it before you so that you start understanding that when you use Shodh Ganga or any other source for your problem, sometime you may get confused, or sometime you may use those words which technically might have been not correct. So I'm just writing one, I have noted down already, and it is, I'm not telling you the university, I'm not telling you the name of the person or name of the guide, because it's not all right. Ethics. And I'm talking to the people from the law, so I have to be very, very, very careful. Okay, all right. So say the title is a critical study of legal framework to regulate misleading advertisements in India with special reference to food, drugs, and cosmetics. Food with respect to food, drugs, and cosmetic. This is the title, my dear friend. And if you see this particular title, there is one important thing. See the word critical. Do you mean to say whatever research you are doing, that research is not critical? Or research becomes critical only and only if you use the word critical? My dear friends, this is not okay, because each research conducted by the researcher is very, very critical. Because when the researcher is conducting the research, he is critical. So therefore, this is not all right. So a critical study of legal framework to regulate misleading advertisements. misleading advertisements in India with a special reference to food, drug, and cosmetic. Now here, can this be worded slightly differently? Because when you are writing with special reference, so can it be worded differently? So that wording of the title is very, very, very important, my dear friends. Because if I do not write title properly, then naturally my further things based on the title will not be all right. So writing the title is very important. So I am not telling you how a title is to be written, but what I will now do is I will just take one variable. Can any one of you suggest me the variable? Just suggest one variable so that I take that variable and I start writing you the title. Just suggest any variable you like, no problem at all. And I will tell you how to write a title.
Sir, public policy.
Public policy. Okay. Any other one? Any other variable you want to suggest me? Okay. Laws of pandemic. Okay. Any other one? Okay. All right. So some of you have written. So let us see. Suppose someone has written migration. I think it was migration, let us say, migrant workers. Okay. And higher education institute is not a variable, dear friend. Okay. So let us take one variable and then and all of you have seen that during pandemic, there have been lot of people from one state to another state, they have gone, and there were a lot of problems. Okay, so if I just take problems, the variable, it may be any, it may be personal problem, it may be social problem, it may be any type of problem. Okay, now if I have to write, let's say, a study of, quickly I'm just giving, I will just give one example, others I will not give. A study of problems a study of problems of migrant workers So let us say now a study of problems of migrant workers of India. If I say a study of problems of migrant workers from Maharashtra. Or if I say a study of problems of migrant workers from Mumbai. Now you see these, I have written Do you think the first one is all right? You can unmute yourself and you can answer. No, it is not all right because it is too broad. And anything which is too broad is vague. So a title cannot be too broad. Now, if you compare the second title with the first title, here you get a word which is problems. So therefore, this becomes the variable. So in this particular second title, I have given the word problems. So the second one, if you compare it with the first one, the second one little narrow. Now, if in the third one, I have given whose problem, it is not the student's problem, it is not the parent's problem, it is the migrant workers' problem. So therefore, in the third one, you have started getting information about the population, about the group. And so in the third one, you know the information about variable, and now you have started getting information about the population or the target group which you want to have for your study. But these migrant workers, from where? Now in the fourth one, I have written India. So I have reduced it. There might have been migrant workers, you know, many of the people, they came from Dubai to India to their country, from others also they were coming. Okay. Now, if you compare the fifth one with the fourth one, now it is Maharashtra. So I have narrowed it down, and now it is Mumbai. I have further narrowed it down. So out of these, which one is appropriate according to you? You can write it in your chat box. Last one, sixth one. Okay. Okay. Now, so therefore, your sixth one is the appropriate title. And if it is appropriate title, then if you analyze this particular title, then you know what are the informations that you get from this title. One information is you get is the variable. And what is the variable in this case is a problem. The second information you are getting about the population. What is the population? It is migrant workers from, you are not saying any type of, there are many types of workers. You are not saying female migrant workers. You are not saying male migrant. See, so much still flexibility. You're not saying the laborer. You're not saying people working in the industry. Okay. Now, so therefore, you know the population, and you know what will be the type of the research for the number sixth one. The type of the research for the number sixth one. What type of research will it be? Can any one of you tell me? I'm waiting for your answer. Survey, correct. So this will be the survey research. So you know the type of research, or you know the methodology. So if you have written a title which is appropriate title, then your title must give you three informations. It must give information about variable or variables. It must give information about population. It must give information about type of research. So therefore, now here, the problem which you have got, now this is the variable, and for this variable, you will only have the qualitative information. And the qualitative information cannot be converted into quantitative. So therefore, you cannot have a hypothesis here. In order to have hypothesis, you have to have a variable where you are going to have your quantitative data. So let me now quickly take one variable. Can you suggest a variable where you will have a quantitative information? Just suggest one variable where quantitative information. Write the name of the variable where we have the quantitative information. No, election is not quantitative. Okay. Okay. Number of cases in the court. Number of transgender employed in the workplace. Okay. Social security, wages. All right. See, some of you, now I think I don't know whether I should give that information, because you know, when you have the data and there is something called the scales of measurement. Scales of do you know the scales of measurement?
So normative scale and there is one other I'm not able to recollect.
No, Likert scale. No. All right.
The
See,
nominal scale.
yes, go ahead.
I don't really know the meaning of nominal scale, but I just know the name nominal scale.
Okay, only one. Okay, let me quickly see there are four types of scale. One is called nominal scale. Now, if I ask you how many participants are attending this webinar, so you will tell, let me see how many are attending. Say you will say 65 people are attending. So this is the information you have given me by counting. So if I ask you how many types of vegetables available in your place, so you will count. If I say out of 65 participants, how many are male participants? You will count. So nominal scale means you just count. Or another, because some of you seems to be from science side, another word, what you use is a frequency. So when you are counting when you are saying how many people are coming in the marriage party, then you count. Make a list and you count. When you go to the restaurant for your lunch or dinner, there is a menu card. And in that menu card, you must have seen there will be soup. And if you count how many types of soup, so all these information will be on the nominal scale. There is another scale which is called ordinal scale. dear friends, you know that there are many advocates in the Supreme Court, in the High Court and lower court. All those people who are working in the High Court in your place, you know, and you say, out of this advocate is the best advocate. This is the second best advocate. Now you can arrange all list of the advocates are available to you in a particular sequence. Another person, if given the same list of the advocates, he may not, he will also have his own sequence. His sequence and your sequence may not be the same. And this is what is ordinal scale. You are arranging it in some order, in some sequence. Order or sequence. You say, when you go to attend any party, and when you come home and you talk, and then you may say, oh, such and such dish was excellent. And someone, no, this was excellent. That is the order in which you are putting. So, but the movie which you say, I like the movie, another person may not like it. And or some people may also like, they say, yes, I also like it. So therefore, your ordinal scale data can be converted into the nominal scale. Because there are two people who are saying, yes, we like, and the two is number, and that is ordinal, that is nominal. So your ordinal scale data may be converted into the nominal scale. Now, if you find out the types of the car, and then according to you, you say this Maruti car is, according to me, is the best. Somebody may not agree with it. Now, when you are putting the cars in a particular sequence, then this is what is ordinal one. If you take the dresses, the dress which you do not like, does it mean no person will like it? No, somebody will definitely like it. So that is what is ordinal scale. And in day-to-day life, we keep on using these concepts that I like such and such, I don't like such and such. You are putting the things, people in a particular sequence. So that's the ordinal scale. I'm not telling you which statistics to use because that has repercussion. Another one is called interval scale. In the interval scale, there must be a starting point. And technically we call it a non-fixed zero. There must be a starting point, or you can say non-fixed zero, or you can say there is a reference point. The choice is yours, any word you can use. Now, if you have a scale, and if you want to measure the length of your table, will you start from zero, or can you start from any point? I'm sure you will agree with me that we need not to start from zero. I can start with 2. Then 2 becomes the 0. So there 0 is not fixed. Okay. So this is a reference point. Somebody may measure the length by putting 0 in the beginning. That tape is there, so he starts with 0. And if it comes to 10, then he say it is 10 feet. Somebody may start from 3. So 3 becomes the 0. So therefore, that is why it is called non-fixed 0. And another one is intervals are of equal length. Intervals are of equal length. Because when you say 0 and 1, the difference between 0 and 1 and the difference between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 is exactly the identical. So the intervals are of equal length. Now, you know, when you stand on a weighing machine, does it mean you have to have a 0? No. If it is 10, then fine. 10 becomes 0. So all these are in the interval scale. And then another is a ratio scale. Now, on the basis of your interval scale, you can arrange the thing in some sequence. So ordinal. So your data from interval scale may be converted into ordinal scale and may be converted into the nominal scale. So higher order data may be converted into the lower order, but lower order data can never be converted into the higher order. It's not possible. And the last one is a ratio scale. In this ratio scale, you have a fixed 0. Or you have a fixed reference point. Fixed 0 or fixed reference point. For example, when I was born, the day I was born, that became the 0 and my counting started from 0. Okay, so when my age is, whatever is my age, I cannot change my reference point because the reference point is a fixed reference point. I cannot change it. So age is on the ratio scale. And many variables in the medical sciences, there you have the data on the ratio scale because 0 is fixed. So number 1 is fixed 0, another is ratios are equal. Now these are the 4 scale of measurement, and the highest scale of measurements are, one is a interval scale. This is the highest, another is a ratio scale. So if you have a data which are either on the interval scale or the ratio scale, these are called strong data. But if you have data on the nominal scale, it is called weak data. If you have data on the ordinal scale, it is called weak data. So if you have a strong data, then you need a strong statistics to analyze it. And if you have a weak data, then you need weak statistics to analyze it. So let me take one variable. So this is just quickly I have given because it has a importance in the hypothesis testing. Okay, now let me take one variable, and you had already given me the variable. Let me see the variable which you have given me. Okay, liquor type scale. All right, let me take one title. Okay, and the variable which I am taking here, variable I am taking is reaction towards COVID-19. How do people react? And I can have the quantitative data. And if suppose I am interested, then I will write a title like this: a comparative study of reaction towards COVID-19 of male and female lawyers of Gujarat, or let us say Ahmedabad. Okay, suppose this is my title, and a comparative study of reaction towards COVID-19 of male and female lawyers of Ahmedabad. Here my variable is, reaction towards COVID-19, and my population is male and female lawyers of Ahmedabad, not of Delhi, not of Chandigarh, not of Mumbai, not of Chennai, but I'm taking only not from some other place of Gujarat. I'm taking Ahmedabad. Now, in this case, the reaction towards the COVID-19, I will have the quantitative data. So here I have this variable, and this variable is the continuous variable. This is continuous variable. And another, I have male and female lawyers is discontinuous variable. And here the variable is gender, because male and female is part of gender. So therefore, it's a discontinuous one. And here male and female is part of gender, which is discontinuous variable. So male and female part of gender, so therefore it's a discontinuous variable. Now, if this is my title, then how do I write my objectives? And then I'm just taking one simple example. I don't want too complicated, because when we are getting, say I have here the gender, and I have the male, and then I have the female. So I have my tool, and that tool is reaction towards COVID-19 scale. I will have this tool, I will administer it, and I will collect the data. And when I collect the data, so I will have here the score of the reaction towards COVID-19 of male, and I will have the reaction towards COVID-19 of female. I will again have the reaction towards COVID-19 of male, and I have the female. So if I have my 20 males and 18 females, then I can find out the average here. Mean I can find out. And when I will find out the mean, so here may be mean 1 in case of male, and here I can write the mean score of reaction towards COVID-19. So this will be the females, and here I can say 2. So M1 is the mean score of reaction towards COVID-19 of male lawyers, and M2 is the mean score of reaction towards COVID-19 of female lawyers. And if I want to do this, then what exactly will be my objective? So my objective wording is, you tell me which one be all right to compare to compare reaction towards COVID-19 of male and female lawyers, and another is to compare mean scores of reaction towards COVID-19. Which one do you think out of these two, which objective wording according to you is appropriate or all right? Okay, 1, all right, 1, all right, 1. No, my dear friend, no. See, how will you compare? You cannot compare the one male lawyer's reaction with another female lawyer reaction, and the same male lawyer reaction with another female. No, you cannot do like this. Whenever we compare, we always compare on the whole, overall. And when we are comparing overall, then we use the word mean. So therefore, your wording of the objective number 1 is technically incorrect, but your wording of objective number 2 is technically correct. So therefore, when you have to write the title, you must be careful. If you want to have a good quality research, and when you want to write the objective, you also have to be very, very, very specific. Okay, so therefore, I hope you have understood. Now, if this is the objective, then how exactly I will write or formulate my hypothesis? So now I am going ahead with my hypothesis. So let me tell you, I will now write the different types of hypothesis, and I will have here only the null form. I will say that the reaction, that mean score of reaction of male lawyers and female lawyers do not differ significantly. So that is what exactly is the null form. But if I give direction, then I must have a strong base. Otherwise, I will not be able to give. So I'm now writing the hypothesis, and then you see this hypothesis is which type. I say there is no significant relationship between reaction towards COVID-19 and gender of lawyer. Gender of lawyers. Okay, now this is the one I have written. I'm writing another one, that there is no significant difference in mean scores of reaction towards mean score of reaction towards COVID-19 of male and female lawyers. And if I write another one, okay, let me just give you these two. Now you see, in the first one, I have written the word relationship. In the second one, I have written the word mean. Now, relationship is a general word. So my first becomes a research hypothesis. Okay. And my second, because mean is a statistical word, so the second becomes my statistical hypothesis. So this is how, my dear friends, you have to have an objective, and then for that particular objective, it is up to you whether you want to formulate a research hypothesis or you want to formulate a statistical hypothesis. Once this hypothesis has been framed, then you collect your data and then you have to analyze your data. And in this particular case, you should know which statistical technique to use. So for this particular objective, now the choice is yours, whether you want to formulate the hypothesis number one, which is a research hypothesis, or you want to formulate the statistical hypothesis. You should not formulate both types of hypothesis, just one for one particular objective. For another objective, you can have another hypothesis, no problem at all. But for one, it is your choice whether you want to have a research hypothesis or you want to have a statistical hypothesis. So we say that I want to have a statistical hypothesis. So I'm just taking care of the first one. Now, if this is my hypothesis, which statistical technique do I use in order to analyze it? You can write your answer in your chat box. Which statistical technique will I use to analyze my, to test my hypothesis? Any rough idea? No rough idea. Apart from null hypothesis, will work hypothesis fall under alternate hypothesis? Okay, no, null hypothesis is different, and under alternate hypothesis, you can say directional hypothesis. I will formulate, no problem at all. Just now I will tell you how to do it. But do you know which statistical technique do we use to test this hypothesis? I'm waiting for your answer.
Sir, they have not yet completed this part.
All right. Okay. Okay. So therefore, this is about now here. What you have to do is the statistical technique that is to be used for testing this hypothesis is called actually t-test. And this is very important. Or its another name is independent samples t-test. So therefore, if you have the objective, then you can write your hypothesis like this. And this is a statistical hypothesis. Now, if you want to formulate the alternative hypothesis, then alternative hypothesis I can formulate like this. If I have a strong base, if I do not have a strong base, then I will not recommend that you formulate the alternative hypothesis. I can formulate that there is a significant difference in mean scores of there is a significant difference in mean scores of reaction towards COVID-19. Now, this particular one is a alternate hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis. This is the alternate hypothesis. So either you formulate the hypothesis in the null form, or you formulate hypothesis the alternate or directional, whatever you like. If I want, I can say that the mean score of reaction towards COVID-19 of male is significantly higher than that of female. I can give a direction, or I can write like this. So therefore, I think if you have another question, because then it comes the testing of the hypothesis, and you cannot do it without you have understood the statistical technique. But that is a very important thing. So I have not given the basis, but I have told you what is a hypothesis and what are the types of the hypothesis and how the hypothesis has to be worded. So if you have any question to ask, so you can ask me the question. Otherwise, then I close today here because I have another webinar now.
Sir, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Sir, can you give an example for operational hypothesis as well? And also, sir, please clarify on the difference between forms of hypothesis and types of hypothesis.
Yes, madam. I just within a second.
Yes, sir.
Within a second, I am giving you.
Yes, sir.
No problem. So I just give you how to formulate your operational hypothesis. Up to here, this is your statistical hypothesis. And then I write when reaction towards COVID-19 is assessed with the help of reaction towards COVID-19 scale developed by, okay, let me say Sansanswal. Now this becomes my operational hypothesis. This is very specific, because if I do not use this particular scale, then I cannot test my hypothesis. So you should formulate the operational hypothesis only and only if you are sure which tool you will be using. And if you are not sure about the tool, then you should not formulate the operational hypothesis. Then either you can formulate a research hypothesis or you may formulate a statistical hypothesis. So this is what, so you will find amongst these three types of hypothesis, the operational hypothesis is pinpointed. Okay, all right. Any other question?
So, in continuation to this, so is it always based on the statistical hypothesis, or it can be based on null hypothesis as well?
See, when you have a statistical hypothesis, the statistical hypothesis can be in the null form or it can be in the directional form.
Okay, sir.
Statistical hypothesis may be written in null form or directional form. But you should formulate in the directional form only and only if you have a strong base. If you do not have a strong base, then you should not formulate it in the directional one. Then it's always better to formulate the null. Any other question you want to ask?
So, as is with the statistical hypothesis, research hypothesis and operational can be null and alternate. It's the same for all the three forms.
Directional or null, these are the forms, and for these you have a base.
Mm-hmm.
Depending upon the base, then you have to decide whether the hypothesis is to be formulated in the null or directional. But to decide whether you want to have a research hypothesis or statistical or operational, this is your choice. There is no base for it. I hope you have understood.
Yes, sir. I have understood it now.
Any other question you want to ask?
No, sir, not from my side.
All right. I think then
I think that is the end of the question, sir.
Okay.
And I would like to say something.
Please go ahead.
Sir, after so many years of teaching, so to say, guiding students, doing their PhD, doing research in different matters and projects, we sometimes realize, we sometimes feel we know everything. But today you have taught me a lesson. It is time to start unlearning because there is lots to learn.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much, sir,
Yes,
for this wonderful lesson. And friends, some of you are teaching in the teaching profession, in colleges, in universities. I want you to appreciate the passion of this person. He's passionate in teaching. And this passion is something which we need to imitate. It cannot be coming so easily. Please understand, please appreciate, please see how passionate his teaching is. He is a life teacher. Thank you very much, sir. There are no words for me. I mean, I don't have any words to thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to learn from the young lawyers, young teachers. So thank you and thank you very much. So right now I'm logging out because now for my another webinar. Okay, so thank you very much.
Hello, thank you so much, sir. Shoblata ma'am, do we need to summarize the sessions?
I think sir is busy. We can let sir lead the session now.
Okay.
Already we have exceeded the time. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Thank you so much, sir.